Hi everyone, Mark DeJesus here, equipping you to live a more healed and free life. It's a passion of mine to help people to experience greater mental, emotional, and relationship health. So today in this video, I want to talk about the subject of being able to emotionally settle. One of the first steps I talk about when it comes to the healing and freedom journey is we have to learn to slow down, to bring the RPMs down, to make room for our hearts to work through and navigate through the pain, brokenness, emptiness of our lives, and just overall live a lifestyle to make space for the things that are meaningful for a more heart-awakened, heart-healed life. And many people in the feedback of that mention it's a struggle to settle. I just can't settle. Can't seem to settle. I don't know how to settle. There's this angst that's there. There's this difficulty to just settle in the moment, to be able to pause, to be able to slow things down just a little bit. So what I want to do is talk about 7 things that can work in operation to prevent us from being able to slow down, to settle a bit more into the healing and freedom journey of our lives. Now, if the resources I mention are a blessing, the things that I share here are a blessing to you, go to markdejesus.com and check out more. I've got a topics page where you can find out more areas for your equipping that can be in a specific topic. You can also support these videos and just share them with those that you care about. But let's talk about these 7 things real briefly and let the one that kind of sticks out the most to you be a helpful clue to your own healing journey. The reason of the 7 reasons that we can't settle, the first one is always the one we have to pay attention to the most. A fast-paced life and lifestyle, always going, constantly doing. We can't settle because we've been conditioned into next thing thinking, the next thing. I got the next thing, the next appointment, next thing. So we're always in this cycle of looking to the next project, the next meeting, the next thing we have to do. And when we try to slow this down or pause it, the brokenness of our lives rises up. It's like, ugh. So we go back to living in the buzz of life. We amplify our busyness. And for many of us, the fast-paced go, 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 constant doing, constant thinking, constant spinning is equal to the anxiety, fear, lack of peace that we have. So we ramp up ourselves to the level of fear and angst that's going on, rather than going against that and going, okay, I'm going to learn to slow down. Which leads me to number 2, which is a performance-driven life. I talk a lot about performance-driven Christianity, which I believe is a deep, infectious virus amongst us in the body of Christ, because it teaches us that the underlying way that you will feel loved and accepted is by making sure you do things, making sure you serve enough, make sure you do enough. There's an underlying cry out of our brokenness is that I got to do to be loved. And the more you do, maybe it will help, and it doesn't, but you respond to the broken, empty feelings by doing more. And then you feel guilt for slowing down or pausing. It's one of the big things that happens when we can't settle. Guilt rises up when we try to slow down because we're performance driven in our life, which leads to number 3, which is perfectionism. Perfectionism is the mindset of just right. Something is not just right, but we try to fix it, we try to make it just right, and it's never enough. So perfectionism drives a just right mentality, but never enough. So it's a constant cycle. So we're constantly doing, and we try to develop our identity out of what we do. And what we do needs to be just right. Our thoughts need to be just right. Our relationships need to be just right. Our presentation needs to be just right. So we're in a fast-paced, performance-driven, perfectionistic cycle, which then inflames, number 4, the inner critic. The inner critic is constantly pointing back to these areas. So when you slow things down, the inner critic arises, making you feel guilty. Maybe you realize, you know what, I need to make some time for myself, to be quiet, to reflect, to pray, or whatever it is. And the inner critic is nagging at you, making you feel guilty. Now, the inner critic rises out of emotional neglect. The lack of equipping in our emotions to be able to appreciate and make room for those moments of stillness, moments of nothing. A lot of us need to make more room for nothing. And that can feel like torture. So the inner critic points to our performance. We're constantly performance evaluating our lives, our parenting, our marriage, our relationship with God, and feeling disqualified. Why? Because it's never just enough. So a fast-paced, performance-driven, perfectionistic, and there's many people that say, no, I'm not perfectionistic. I just like things just right, or I just like to make sure I... We're often in denial of how this affects us. But number 4 affects the first, is pointing back to the first 3. And the inner critic's voice is constant self-hatred, it's shame, it's guilt, it's like someone standing over your shoulder while you're trying to do life, assessing you, accusing you. And of course, the enemy loves to use this as a way to make us what? An enemy to ourselves. And this is one of the reasons why we cannot settle. In the heart of these 7, right here in the middle, we become an enemy to ourselves. And God has not called you to be an enemy to you. But we become conditioned under that. A brokenness rises to the surface. We shame ourselves. We become an enemy to ourselves. We are critical to ourselves. And in a way, what we do is it's a form of distancing us from ourselves. Right? When you shame someone, you are critical, you're accusatory. It's a way of pushing them away. And so out of our pain and brokenness, trauma and drama, we do this to ourselves. And this is where in the stillness, in slowing things down, in being more aware of what's going on in the life of our heart, we have to let love begin to drown out the inner critic. So number 5 leads us into nonstop chronic thinking. And this comes about in different forms. Maybe it is ruminating, where we spin and we spin and we spin over a subject. It's a survival mechanism. We can't settle because this thing needs to be resolved. And it really stems out of our lack of unconditional love. We feel, because settle is really about being able to rest in love. I'm okay right where I am. And so all these mechanisms point to things that need to be fixed or need to be addressed that keep us in a state that doesn't let us just land into the peace, because God's love for us is available right now. So ruminating, we spin, we spin, we spin. We catastrophize, right? We blow up and magnify scenarios. We get into a domino effect where things begin to spiral. We move into despair. Or our nonstop thinking is the constant fixing. I know that for so long I had this inner critic with a nonstop editor, which was a big part of my obsessive compulsive battle of feeling disturbances from my history, maybe moments in my life, mistakes I made. They were highlighted, magnified. And then I'd feel like, how do I fix this? I can't go back in time, so I would just spin and ruminate and be in the disturbance. And what it would do is it would prevent me, because this nonstop ruminating, catastrophizing, and fixing and spinning prevents me from letting myself heal and grieve through the emotions of my life and my journey, to appreciate weaknesses, to let myself be embraced by God's love. No, I spend time fixing, and I'm in survival mode. And so that nonstop thinking leads me into number 6, which is hypervigilance. What's hypervigilance? It's an elevated sense of your stress response. You're on guard. You're on edge. You're a little bit on edge. You're like the person who sits in the restaurant. You got to have your seat, have a back to the wall so you can see the door. Always assessing, always on guard. You're relationally on guard, always on thought guard. There's a stress level that's just deeply wired. I know in certain areas of my life, I've had to learn to actively tell myself, you're safe, you're loved, you're okay, relax. Because I would notice I'm stressed, I'm tense. And it's like, I have no reason to be tense right now. I'm just sitting, doing something, or watching television, or just in the car, and I realize my muscles are tense. Do you relate to that? Where there's just, and at the end of the day, you feel your neck sore, and you're like, I don't know that I did anything really active to make my muscles sore, but they're just tense. There's a hypervigilance. It's on guard. Oftentimes it reveals trauma, reveals defining moments in our life or emotions that just haven't been processed. And they're like stuck within us and they keep triggering our stress response into a state of hypervigilance. The last one, which is incredibly important, is we don't have equipping on how to turn off, so to speak, turn off our stress response. It's just constantly in fight or flight, just constantly in a mechanism where the stress response, even when there is no visible thing there, it's still going on. And even when it's not there, our minds find something. And a lot of it comes back to how are we equipped to close our day? How are we equipped in nurture? To receive God's comforting nurture, to receive that love. When you've had a tough day, to be able to recover, to be able to take a breath in, to remind yourself you're okay, safe, to be able to go to sleep at night rather than like a lot of times we just crash land into bed. Being able to wind down at the end of the day, to remind ourselves, I'm safe, that my body is responding to something from the past, but right now I'm safe and I can experience healing through that area of my life. I can learn how to recover from my day. Most people I talk to who are honest say, yeah, I don't have equipping in this. Now, to summarize this, all these areas prevent us not only from being able to settle, to rest in God's love, they create blocks to actually allow ourselves to work through emotions in our life, to actually navigate through feelings, to actually work through the emptiness, the pain, the trauma, the neglect, the heartache, the disappointments in our life. All this stuff just keeps us in a buzz of toxicity. Why? Because if I try to settle, that's scary. And fear stands there and says, no, you don't want to go here. You don't want to go there. And our lack of equipping goes, I don't know if I can do this. That's why I'm so passionate about being a brother to you and helping to put language to your journey into your life. Because eventually we have to say, all right, I gotta halt some of these things. I gotta face some of these things so I can allow myself in the love and grace of God be able to work through and navigate the pain and emptiness of my life and my journey. Love is who God is. Grace is how He delivers it. And He leads us on a relational journey. So how about you? You want to take the heart healing journey? And maybe all you need to do is just say, I'm willing, and I'm just going to slow things down a little bit to let myself be aware. And I'm going to let myself enter a journey, not a quick fix, not a get me better by tomorrow, whatever that means. I'm going to take a journey and I'm going to allow myself to walk this one step at a time. If this means something to your life and your journey, 2 resources I would recommend. Number 1 would be The Heart Healing Journey, where this book is an invitation for you to experience healing, awakening, and transformation in your heart and life, and really a call to take that journey. The second resource I'd recommend is a lot of this is learning how to have a better relationship with yourself and receiving God's love in the way that He loves you. And it's my book, God Loves Me, and I Love Myself. These 2 resources are a great place to dive into because I pray that as we all work through these, you'll learn to experience a more loving relationship with God, to apply that to how you see yourself, and then let that flow into how you relate to others in your life and in your journey. I pray it's a blessing to your life and to what you're processing through. God bless you. I'll see you the next time.